Sounds good.
What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with Dilly Vanilli here to give you the X factor for each division across the NFL. In this video, we're going to discuss the AFC North. And the AFC North is a division that we just discussed, the AFC East. If you guys haven't already checked that video out, go check it out. That's a division that's a little bit more predictable in the Patriots are probably going to finish first, and then it's just the fight for second place. This division is pretty interesting because while the Steelers are pretty much the favorite for the division, you have three other teams that could potentially come in second and have a very good, chance to make the playoffs if they do finish second in this division, because it is a pretty strong division. So it's kind of interesting on who is going to be the actual X factor here. Who's going to make the biggest difference? Who's going to make the biggest impact in this division? Dylan, who is the difference maker? Who is the X factor for you in the AFC North?
Okay, this one was a little bit difficult for me because I was looking at it for like the overall strength of all four teams. I think the weakest team out of this division, surprisingly enough, is the Bengals. And I know the Browns are even in this division, but I don't think they're going to do much this year. So when looking at it, I'm like, who's going to take over and really lead the pack? And as weird as this is going to sound compared to the rest of my picks, I have Big Ben as my X factor for the AFC.
Explain why Big Ben is an X factor. Haven't we kind of expected greatness from Big Ben at this point, or do we feel like this is a big season for Big Ben, a turning point?
I think it's a huge point because going into the last season, right, there was all the skepticism of was he going to retire? The offseason before, it was always questions of is he still good enough to lead this Pittsburgh Steelers team? We've heard questions of retirement. Is he regressing? We saw in that early week, I think week 5 game last season where he threw 5 picks against the Jaguars, was the Big Ben era in Pittsburgh done? But then he came back. He led this team with great players. They've got great talent always. But they led in their division. They continued to be a threat, and they played hard, even though they got extremely cocky, which you can talk about in the last, the videos we talked about them the last couple months. Either way, they were still doing a very good job at putting up wins, and I think it was all in part due to a really good Big Ben season. I think the year before, we saw a really bad regression. It was not a good season 2 years ago. And last year, Big Ben came up in a big way, and with the talent that he has, put up a really good season. They fell short, but I still think with the talent that he had, he did a very good job. This season around, he's not getting any younger. He still has great talent. But the question is he going to lead this team like the same success that he had last season? You got the Ravens coming up. They just barely missed the playoffs. Some could argue that they should have made the playoffs. But regardless, they got a lot better. I think they did well in certain areas, in free agency and whatnot, that they're going to be a team to sneak up in the AFC North and control their destiny. I think the other two teams are really just trying to develop. But I think Big Ben's going to have to lead that charge over the Ravens more than anybody else. And if he continues to play well like he did last season, I think he'll be the biggest X factor. Because if he doesn't play well, I think the cohesion between the Steelers team is going to be dysfunctional like it was in the first 5 weeks of 2017. And that's not going to be good for the future of the Steelers going forward.
So I think with Big Ben, the thing is, I agree with you that he's a big-time X factor in a couple of points, and even some points that you didn't bring up. I think a huge question with the Steelers is what's the situation with their star running back, Le'Veon Bell? Is he going to hold out? Is he even going to play? That's a huge question. And I think another one is, and especially if he doesn't play, Big Ben's going to have to take that much more onto his shoulders and carry the team somewhat. But then the other question I think is Mason Rudolph got drafted. And I think that in a way that we've seen in the past with my quarterback, Tom Brady, we saw him get a little motivated from Jimmy Garoppolo being drafted. And we saw this past season with Alex Smith having Patrick Mahomes behind him. He had his best season arguably he's ever had. So I feel like Big Ben, in a way that you say X factor, he could have his best season in a long time just because of motivation and because he is going to be counted on more than ever. So there's a couple things there. Plus, Ryan Shazier is not coming back for that defense anytime soon, and it doesn't look like that defense is going to be great. So the Steelers, and it's really going to be on Big Ben's shoulders. So I understand why he is your X factor. And maybe even more so in the AFC, he could be the X factor because not necessarily the AFC North in a way, because you expect the Steelers to win the division. But in the AFC, if Big Ben is that good, they can potentially get to the Super Bowl. So I feel like there's kind of different levels to Big Ben's X factorness. For me, it's kind of off the radar a little bit. While I don't agree with you with the Bengals, I actually think the Bengals are a pretty talented team. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think they're a competitive team. Like you said, the Ravens are always in the mix because they have a great coaching staff. They still have talented players and a good defense. And with the Browns are the team that kind of stuck out in my mind. And I was just thinking of players or parts of their team that are X factor worthy. And when you talk about that, maybe you could point to their receivers. Josh Gordon could be an X factor for them. Jarvis Landry could be an X factor for them. Maybe you look at their defense, Myles Garrett, maybe their secondary as in general could be an X factor because that was their biggest weakness last year, could maybe turn into a strength this year. But my thing is their coaching staff, because I think it has everything to do with their entire team. Because Hugh Jackson has been the worst head coach in the NFL, arguably in NFL history in a 2-year span. He's only won one game in 2 years. So that's pretty bad. And quarterback, you have Tyrod Taylor, who, that's an X factor in itself. How good is Tyrod Taylor going to be? But then again, you think about Hugh Jackson and his impact on Tyrod Taylor, and then also Todd Haley coming in as the new offensive coordinator could be a big change for them and actually, help their offense a lot. So I feel like those two guys in particular, Hugh Jackson, Todd Haley, if they do a really good job with this team, the Browns could maybe be a playoff team. I know that's kind of a stretch, but if they do a great job coaching, we've seen things happen that have been crazier in the past, right? So if the Browns offense is really good because of Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson does some stuff just to get this team together, then hey, I think that's the true X factor. While there are other players on other teams like Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, even Lamar Jackson, or, some of these other players on other teams, I feel like the Browns are the biggest X factor and their Browns coaching staff is the biggest X factor, while Dylan thinks that it's still Big Ben of the Steelers. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video for the AFC North, the X factors of the AFC North. Let us know who you guys think is the X factor of the AFC North. Is it on the Browns, Bengals, Ravens, or Steelers? Who is the player, coach, or side of the ball or area of the team that you think is going to make the biggest difference and the biggest impact in the AFC North and could change the entire landscape of the division? Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit the like button and subscribe. See you next X Factor video.